He held the envelope out like it was a solution. Thick, clean, cash. And Nia Beaumont did not reach for it. Before we begin, take a moment to comment your city and local time. I read them all. And if you're here for stories about dignity, fairness, and real accountability, hit like, subscribe, and let's get into it. The gala lights behind him spilled across the pavement in warm gold, the kind of light that made everything look kinder than it was. Inside, people in tuxedos laughed over glasses that cost more than a week of groceries. Outside, the winter air cut through coats and into bone. Ethan Carrington stood just beyond the charity step and repeat backdrop in the narrow strip where cameras were supposed to stop. He had slipped out for air, or at least that was what his team believed. His driver waited at the curb in a black car with tinted windows, engine humming, heat running. A security guard hovered nearby, hands folded, scanning. Nia stood with a plastic crate at her feet. It was full of donated hygiene kits, socks, travel-sized soap, toothbrushes, neatly packed. She wore a Navy volunteer hoodie with the charity's logo, hair pulled back, face calm, eyes sharp. Ethan's smile was polished. "This is for you," he said, voice low, private. "No press, just a thank you. I've heard you've been here every night this week." He lifted the envelope slightly, as if the weight of it should speak for itself. Nia looked at it like it was something left on a train seat. Then she looked at him. "No," she said. The word landed clean and flat. Ethan blinked, a fraction of surprise cracking his expression. He had the kind of face people trusted, the kind that looked honest on billboards. Salt and pepper hair, a soft jawline, eyes that knew exactly where the camera was, even when he pretended he didn't. "I'm sorry," he said, like he genuinely believed he'd misheard. "I said no," Nia repeated. "I don't take cash from strangers." He gave a short laugh, trying to keep it warm. "I'm not a stranger. I'm Ethan Carrington." She nodded once, like she was acknowledging the weather. "I know who you are." His smile tightened. "Then you know why I'm offering." "Because you like the feeling," she said, still calm. "Because it's easy. Because it photographs well." The security guard shifted, eyes narrowing, as if disrespect was a safety risk. Ethan's tone gentled, practiced. "Look, I'm not here to be filmed. I'm here to help." Nia held his gaze without flinching. "If you want to help, I'll ask you for one thing." Ethan's eyebrows lifted. "Name it." "Come with me," she said. He glanced back towards the ballroom, towards the glass doors, the lights, the laughter, the comfort. "Where?" "No cameras," she added. "No entourage, no speech, no posts, just you." The security guard's jaw set. "Sir, we can't—" Ethan didn't look away from Nia. "How far?" "Far enough," she said. "Close enough to smell the truth." The words sat there between them like a dare. Ethan exhaled, half amused, half annoyed. "You're bold." "I'm tired," Nia said. "There's a difference." A gust of wind rushed down the street, tugging at banners and coats. Somewhere nearby, a siren wailed and faded. Ethan looked at the envelope again, then at Nia's crate. He saw her hands, chapped and steady. He saw the tired line at the corner of her eyes that came from hours under fluorescent lights. And something in him shifted, just slightly. Not guilt, not yet. Curiosity. He lowered the envelope. "Fine," he said. 10 minutes. Nia's expression didn't change. "It won't take 10. She turned and began walking, not fast, not slow, like she already knew he was coming. Ethan hesitated. His guard stepped in closer. "Sir, this is not advisable. We can arrange a vetted site visit tomorrow with the comms team." Ethan's eyes stayed on Nia's back. "No comms," the guard tried again. "At least let us bring a second vehicle." Ethan made a decision that felt small, the kind of decision that never stayed small. "One vehicle," he said. "We follow her." The guard looked like he wanted to argue with the air itself, but he nodded, clipped into his earpiece, and signaled the driver. Ethan stepped into the warm car, and the door shut with a soft, expensive thud. Naya didn't get in. She walked ahead in the cold, hands in her hoodie pocket, leading them through streets where the gala light didn't reach. Ethan watched from behind the glass as the city changed block by block. Restaurants gave way to boarded-up shops. Bright storefronts became dark windows. The sidewalks thinned out until the people left on them moved with a different kind of urgency. He told himself he knew this. He donated to this. He funded community initiatives and rapid response housing support. But knowing something on paper was not the same as riding through it at night, seeing the tents under the bridge, the heater vents people gathered around like campfires. Nia stopped beside a low building with a flickering sign that read, Sunset Inn. One letter buzzed like it was trying to escape. The car idled at the curb. Nia looked back. Get out. Ethan glanced at his guard, then opened the door. The air slapped him. It smelled like damp concrete and stale smoke. Nia walked toward the motel office and Ethan followed, shoes too clean for the puddles, coat too expensive for this wind. Inside, the office was lit by harsh white light. A tired man behind plexiglass barely looked up. Nia slid an ID badge under the slot. Evening, Carl. Carl's eyes flicked up, then past her, landing on Ethan. His posture changed immediately. Well, Carl said, suddenly awake, if it isn't... Wow. Ethan didn't offer his hand. He just watched. Nia's voice stayed level. We're here for the Bridgeway block. How many rooms are you holding tonight? Carl cleared his throat. 15. Nia nodded. How many are actually occupied by clients placed through Bridgeway? Carl hesitated. Ethan leaned slightly. Answer her. Carl's eyes darted. 10. Nia's face stayed calm. And the other 5? Carl forced a smile. We keep them on standby. You know how it is. Nia turned to Ethan. You pay for 15 every night, but only 10 get used. Ethan's brow furrowed. If they're on standby, that's still... Nia cut in softly. Then show me the standby list. Carl shifted. I'm not authorized to... Nia's eyes hardened just a fraction. Carl, you know me. Don't do that. Carl swallowed. It's complicated. Nia leaned closer to the plexiglass. Show the list. Carl's shoulders dropped like he was surrendering to gravity. He pulled a clipboard from beneath the counter and slid a paper under the slot. Nia picked it up and handed it to Ethan without looking at it herself. Ethan scanned the names. They weren't names. They were room numbers, and next to 5 of them, in neat handwriting, was one word repeated. Maint. Maintenance. Ethan looked up. Maintenance? Carl gave a nervous laugh. Sometimes the rooms need work, plumbing, bugs, it happens. Nia's tone stayed even. Every night? Ethan turned the page. The same 5 rooms marked maint for 3 weeks straight. His mouth tightened. This is... He didn't finish. Nia nodded toward the back hallway. Come on. Carl's eyes widened. Nia, don't, please. Nia didn't look at him. If you want to keep your job, you'll let us walk. Ethan's guard stepped in. Ma'am, we're not going down a hallway in a motel at midnight. Nia faced the guard. Then don't. Wait here. Ethan can decide if he wants to see the truth. Ethan hated that she used his first name like it belonged to her, and he hated more that it worked. He moved past the guard. I'm going. The guard muttered into his earpiece, and his hand hovered near his waistband like a warning. They walked down the corridor. The carpet was thin and stained. Doors were shut. Behind one, a baby cried, muffled. Nia stopped at room 214 and knocked. No answer. She knocked again. Bridgeway check-in. It's Nia. Locks clicked. The door opened a crack. A woman's face appeared, early 30s, exhausted, eyes ringed with sleeplessness. She held a toddler on her hip, the child's cheek pressed against her shoulder. The woman's eyes went to Ethan, confused, then wary. Nia softened her voice. This is Ethan. He's here to listen. No cameras, no trouble. The woman hesitated. Nia said, You're safe. You can say no. The woman's eyes searched Nia's face, as if weighing whether safety was real. Then she opened the door wider. The room smelled of damp clothes and instant noodles, 2 beds, a small table. A heater that rattled like it might quit at any moment. A suitcase sat in the corner. A plastic bag held a child's coat. The woman shifted the toddler higher on her hip. "I'm Marisol," she said quietly. Ethan stepped inside like he didn't know where to put his hands. Marisol looked at Nia. "Are they going to move me again?" Nia's jaw tightened. "Not tonight." Marisol's gaze returned to Ethan. "You're the man on the posters." Ethan nodded. "I fund Bridgeway, yes." Marisol's laugh was sharp, joyless. "You fund this?" Ethan glanced around, uncomfortable. "This is temporary housing." Marisol's voice rose slightly. "Temporary is what they call it when they don't want to admit it's a trap." Ethan's eyes flicked to Nia, as if asking her to control the room. Nia didn't. Marisol continued, words spilling like a dam with cracks. "They said I could get an apartment voucher if I stayed in compliance. Compliance means I don't complain. Compliance means I sign everything. Compliance means I smile when they do their surveys." Ethan frowned. "Surveys," Nia said. "Client satisfaction forms, data collection, metrics." Marisol nodded quickly. "They take my information every week. They ask about my mental health, my child's health. They ask if I've ever been arrested, if I have family, where my ex works, everything." Ethan's face tightened. "That's for services, to tailor support." Marisol's eyes flashed. "Then why did the lady call me and say if I didn't sign the new form, I'd lose my room? Why did she say they could place me at a different motel farther away where the bus doesn't run?" Ethan looked at Nia again. Nia's voice was calm. "Because the forms aren't just for support, they're a product." Ethan's jaw flexed. "What are you talking about?" Nia didn't answer immediately. She looked at Marisol. "Would you mind showing him the folder?" Marisol hesitated, then crossed to the table and pulled a manila folder from beneath it. It was thick, filled with papers. She handed it to Ethan like she was handing him proof of bruises. Ethan flipped through. Intake forms, consent forms, release forms. More signatures than any human should have to give to be allowed to sleep indoors. His eyes stopped on a page with a logo. North Star Care Systems. He recognized it immediately. North Star was Bridgeway's biggest partner, a healthcare network, a powerhouse. Their sponsorship checks were enormous. Their executives hugged him on stages. Nia pointed. "That's not a Bridgeway form. That's North Star's." Ethan's voice went quiet. "Why is North Star collecting this?" Marisol's shoulders lifted in a helpless shrug. "They said it's part of the program. They said it helps." Nia took a breath. "It helps someone, just not her." Ethan looked up. "Are you saying we're selling data?" Nia met his eyes. "I'm saying you're not asking where the money comes from after your name is printed on the banner." Ethan's guard shifted at the door, uncomfortable. Ethan looked down at the forms again, then back at Marisol. "Has anyone explained what these releases mean?" Marisol's mouth twisted. "They talk fast. They say big words. They say if I don't sign, they have someone else who will." Her toddler stirred, small fingers tugging at her collar. Ethan swallowed. "I didn't know." Nia's voice remained steady. "That's the point. You're the face, you're not the eyes." Ethan's pride flared. "I'm not some clueless mascot. I built this charity." Nia nodded once like she agreed with his sentence but not his conclusion. "Then come see the other 5 rooms." Ethan frowned. "What other 5? Nia turned toward the hallway. "The ones you pay for. The ones marked maintenance every night, the ones that are never for clients." Carl's nervous face flashed in Ethan's mind. Ethan looked at Marisol. "Thank you," he said, too stiff. Marisol didn't smile. "Just don't forget what you saw." They left the room. The hallway felt colder, even indoors. Nia walked to room 216. She didn't knock. She used a key card. Ethan's head snapped. "You have keys?" Nia didn't look at him. "I used to run placements. You don't forget how doors work." She opened the door. The room was pristine. No bags, no clothes, no signs of anyone living there. But on the table, there was a black hard case. Nia pointed. "Open it?" Ethan hesitated. "That's not..." Nia's eyes held him. "Open it." Ethan stepped forward and unlatched the case. Inside was a small device, lights blinking, a router. cables, a compact server unit. Ethan stared. "What is this?" Naya's voice stayed calm, but there was steel under it. "A data capture hub. Northstar installs them in partner sites for program efficiency. They sit here, plugged into the motel's line, siphoning everything that comes through." Ethan's throat worked. "That's illegal." Naya's gaze didn't shift. "Not if you signed the partnership agreement. Not if your lawyers wrote the consent language into those forms." Ethan's face drained. "You're guessing." Naya reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out a folded photograph. Printed. Old school. She handed it to him. It showed a room like this, same device, and a technician crouched beside it. The technician wore a Northstar jacket. The date stamp was on the corner. Ethan read it, then looked up sharply. "Where did you get this?" Nia's voice was quiet now. "From the day I got fired." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Fired?" Nia didn't flinch. "I was a social worker, licensed, 15 years. I worked cases, placements, domestic violence escape plans, child safeguarding. I joined Bridgeway because your speeches made it sound like you wanted to do the work the right way." Ethan's jaw tightened. "And you're here volunteering because, what, you missed it?" Naya's laugh was small and humorless. "I'm here because people like Marisol don't get to quit this system, and because when I tried to report what I saw, they buried me." Ethan stared at her. Nia continued, measured. "I wrote a report. I flagged the data releases. I flagged the inflated motel blocks. I flagged the vendor contracts. I sent it up the chain. You know what happened?" Ethan didn't answer. Nia said, "They called me difficult. They said I was aggressive. They said I was not a team player. They told me I was lucky to have a job at all. They pushed me out, quietly. No scandal, no noise." Ethan's voice was low. "Who?" Nia looked at him. "You're bored." Silence settled heavy. In the distance, a door slammed. Someone shouted. A TV played too loudly behind thin walls. Ethan's guard stepped closer. "Sir, we should leave." Ethan didn't move. His eyes stayed on Nia. "If you have proof, why come to me?" Nia's gaze was steady. "Because you're the only one who can walk into that boardroom and make them afraid." Ethan scoffed. "Afraid of what? I'm the donor." Nia's voice sharpened slightly. "Not the donor, the cover. Your name is the shield. Your smile is the alibi." Ethan's face hardened. "You're saying I'm complicit?" Nia nodded once. "I'm saying you're useful, which is worse in a way." Ethan's pride bristled, but under it was something else, something that felt like a cold hand on the back of his neck. He looked back at the device in the case. Then he looked at the motel corridor. He had spent millions to make this city look better in annual reports, but the truth was humming inside a plastic box in room 216. Nia watched him wrestle with it. Then she delivered the next button, the next hook, the next truth. "This is one motel," she said. "One." Ethan's eyes flicked up. "How many?" Nia's voice dropped. 8 sites, same pattern, same partner, same vendors." Ethan's throat tightened. "And the kickbacks?" Nia stepped closer, just enough that her words felt private. "You know your board treasurer, Victor Halden?" Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Yes." "He owns the consultancy that audits your programs," Nia said, "and he invoices you for work he doesn't do." Ethan's expression shifted. "That's a serious accusation." Nia nodded. "It is. That's why I don't say it lightly." She reached into her pocket again and pulled out a small USB drive. Ethan stared at it. "What's that?" Nia held it between 2 fingers like it was nothing, like it was everything. "Invoices, emails, contract addendums, and a spreadsheet that shows exactly where the money goes after it leaves Bridgeway." Ethan's face tightened. "How did you get that?" Nia's eyes stayed steady. "Because somebody inside finally got tired of watching people suffer for someone else's profit." Ethan's guard stepped forward. "Sir, do not accept unknown devices." Nia didn't even glance at the guard. "You don't have to take it, yet." Ethan's jaw flexed. "What do you want?" Nia's voice was calm again. I told you, come with me, no cameras, listen, then decide if you want to keep being the alibi or become the consequence. Ethan's pulse thudded. He felt the urge to regain control, to pull rank, to remind her who he was, but this place did not care who he was, and Nia did not care who he pretended to be. He took a slow breath. Where to next? Nia turned. Back. Ethan frowned. Back where? Nia's eyes didn't soften. To your gala, to your board, to the people who clap for you, because the next part can't happen in a motel hallway. Ethan's lips pressed together. He followed her out into the cold. In the car, the heat blasted, and Ethan felt almost angry at how quickly comfort returned. His phone buzzed with messages, his comms director, his assistant, a board member. Where are you? The press wants another photo. The auction is starting. We need you on stage. Ethan stared at the screen, then looked at Nia through the rearview mirror as she sat in the back seat, arms folded, looking out the window. You're not scared, he said quietly. Nia didn't look at him. I'm careful. Ethan's voice sharpened. Careful doesn't keep you alive when powerful people get threatened. Nia finally turned her head, eyes catching the dim streetlight. You think I don't know that? Her tone was soft, but it carried years. I've been threatened by men who wear suits and men who wear uniforms, she said. I've had my license questioned, my character smeared. I've been followed to my car. I've been called every name you can think of, and some you haven't. Ethan swallowed. Nia continued, quiet. I'm still here. The car rolled towards the bright district again. Ethan watched the city shift back into polished storefronts and valet lines. The gala appeared like a jewel box. When they arrived, Nia didn't get out. Ethan paused with his hand on the door handle. You're not coming in? Nia's eyes met his. Not yet. They'll try to turn me into the story. They'll call me bitter. They'll call me a liar. They'll call me angry. Ethan's mouth tightened. Nia added, and they'll say it like they're doing you a favor. Ethan got out. As soon as he stepped into the warm lobby, his comms director, Paige, swooped in like a hawk in a tailored dress. Ethan, she hissed through a smile, hands on his arm, steering him. Where have you been? The press is asking questions. We're about to announce the new partnership. Ethan glanced at the step in repeat. Cameras flashed, smiles, champagne. Paige leaned close. Are you all right? Ethan's jaw flexed. Who approved the North Star data integration? Paige's smile faltered for half a second. Sorry? The data integration, he repeated. Who signed it? Paige's eyes darted. That would be legal, and the board. It's standard for program evaluation. Ethan, this is not the time. Ethan's voice stayed low. It's exactly the time. Paige's fingers tightened on his arm. You're about to go on stage. Ethan looked at her. Cancel the partnership announcement. Paige froze as if she'd misheard a language. Ethan, he leaned closer. Cancel it. Her composure snapped just slightly. We have donors. We have executives. North Star's the headline. If you pull this now, you will embarrass everyone. Ethan's eyes hardened. Good. Paige's face tightened. What happened out there? Ethan's phone buzzed again. A text from Victor Halden. Need you on stage. Do not make any changes tonight. Ethan stared at it, then looked up at Paige. He felt the first real surge of something he hadn't expected. Anger. Not at Nia. At the idea that his charity, his legacy, had been turned into a machine he didn't control. He stepped away from Paige and walked towards the back corridor, away from the cameras. Paige hurried after him. Ethan, please. Ethan stopped near a quiet door marked staff only. He turned. Get me the board chair. Paige blinked. You're the board chair. Ethan's mouth tightened. Then get me the board, now. Private room, 10 minutes. Paige stared at him, then nodded, the way people do when they realize they've lost the ability to steer. Ethan stepped into the staff corridor and dialed his chief counsel. Amelia, he said when she answered, I need you here now. Bring audit, bring compliance, bring someone who won't flinch. There was a pause. What is this about? Ethan's voice was flat. Fraud. Silence. Then, I'm on my way. Ethan ended the call and stared at the wall for a long second. He imagined Nia in the back of the car, calm, watching, and he realized something that made his stomach twist. If she was right, he had been shaking hands with wolves and calling it leadership. He walked back into the gala. On stage, a presenter was making jokes. People laughed on cue. Ethan didn't smile. He moved through the crowd, ignoring hands reaching for him, ignoring donors who wanted a moment, ignoring the soft tug of his old life. He went straight to the private room. When he pushed the door open, Victor Halden was already inside, seated like he owned the air. 2 other board members were there as well. Meredith Klein, who chaired community outreach and wore pearls like armor, and Thomas Reeve, the finance committee member with a permanent friendly grin. Victor stood. There you are. His voice was smooth. We were concerned. Ethan shut the door behind him. The click sounded louder than it should have. I'm sure you were, Ethan said. Meredith laughed lightly. Ethan, darling, what is this? You're missing the auction. Victor's smile stayed fixed. Paige said you wanted a quick word. Let's keep it quick. Ethan looked at each of them. He had known them for years. He had trusted them. He had toasted with them. Now he wondered what they had toasted to when he wasn't in the room. Ethan spoke slowly. Do we pay Sunset Inn for 15 rooms a night? Thomas chuckled. Of course, that's part of the emergency block. It guarantees placement. Ethan nodded. How many are used? Victor's smile didn't move. That fluctuates. Ethan's eyes narrowed. 5 rooms are marked maintenance every night for 3 weeks, yet we still pay for them. Meredith's expression tightened. Where are you getting this? Ethan leaned forward slightly. Answer. Thomas's grin faltered. Ethan, this is not how we do governance. Victor's voice cooled. You've been out with volunteers again, haven't you? You know they can be emotional. They don't understand the complexities. Ethan's jaw flexed. I saw a data capture hub in one of those rooms. Silence. Meredith's eyes widened just slightly, then she recovered. That's for program efficiency. Ethan turned to her. Why is North Star collecting our client data? Meredith held his gaze. Because they fund the program, because they provide services, because we have consent. Ethan's voice sharpened. Consent under threat is not consent. Victor's smile disappeared. Ethan, you are spiraling. This gala is our biggest fundraiser. If you go on some crusade tonight, you will damage the organization. Ethan stared at him. The organization? Or your revenue stream? Thomas's face flushed. Excuse me? Ethan's phone buzzed. Amelia, his counsel. Outside. 5 minutes. Ethan looked back at Victor. What does Halden Consulting do for Bridgeway? Victor's eyes narrowed. You know what we do. We advise. We audit. Ethan's voice was low. You invoice us for services that don't exist. Victor's posture shifted, subtle, like a man bracing for impact. That's an outrageous claim. Ethan stared at him. Is it? Meredith stood, voice sharp. Ethan, I am warning you, do not do this, not here. Ethan's eyes remained steady. You're warning me because you're used to me being the face while you run the machine. Victor stepped closer. You're not thinking clearly. Ethan's voice dropped. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years. He opened the door. Amelia stepped in, crisp suit, eyes alert. 2 people followed her, one carrying a laptop case, another with a folder. Amelia looked around, then at Ethan. Tell me what you saw. Victor's mouth tightened. This is inappropriate. This is not a legal matter. Amelia's gaze cut to him. If there's fraud, it's a legal matter. Victor forced a smile. We're having a private discussion. You can leave. Amelia didn't blink. No. Ethan spoke. I want an immediate independent audit, full access, all vendor contracts, all partnership agreements, all data policies. Thomas scoffed. You can't just demand. Ethan's voice cut. I can. I'm the chair, and tonight I'm done being decorative. Meredith's eyes flashed. This is because of that volunteer, isn't it? The one who thinks she's smarter than everyone. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Don't. Meredith's tone sharpened. Ethan, we have worked for years to keep this organization reputable. And now you let some bitter ex-staff member get into your head and you... Ethan's voice became ice. Her name is Nia Beaumont, Meredith sneered. Of course you know her name. You probably think you're rescuing her. Ethan's jaw flexed. No, she's trying to rescue the people we claim to serve. Victor's voice went quiet, dangerous. Ethan, if you do this, you will lose donors, you will lose partners, you will lose your standing. Ethan looked at him. If my standing depends on exploiting people, I don't want it. The room went still. Amelia set the folder on the table. We can begin tonight. I'll need your signatures. Victor stepped back, eyes cold. You're making a mistake. Ethan nodded slowly. Maybe, but at least it'll be my mistake, not yours. Victor's smile returned, thin. You're going to regret this. Ethan met his eyes. Then I'll regret it while sleeping at night. Outside the room, the gala continued like nothing was happening. Inside, Ethan felt the ground shifting under decades of comfort. He turned to Amelia. Lock down the accounts. Freeze new payments to vendors until we review. Amelia nodded. Understood. Thomas stood abruptly. This is insane. Meredith's voice rose. You can't do this to us. We've built this. Ethan's voice was steady. You built a pipeline, and you hid it behind the word charity. Victor stepped forward again, voice low. Who gave you this information? Ethan's eyes didn't move. You're asking the wrong question. Victor's nostrils flared. Answer me. Ethan leaned in. The right question is why you thought you'd never be caught. Victor's face tightened. Amelia spoke, calm. If you have nothing to hide, you'll cooperate. Victor looked at Ethan, then at Amelia, then at the folder on the table. For a moment, Ethan thought Victor might explode. Instead, Victor smiled again, controlled. Fine. Audit. He turned towards the door. But remember, Ethan, when the press hears you're investigating your own board, they will smell blood. They will tear you apart. Ethan watched him leave. Meredith followed, fury in her heels. Thomas hesitated, then left too, phone already out, already texting. The room felt quieter, but the danger hadn't left. It had only changed shape. Amelia looked at Ethan. You need to tell me everything. From the beginning. Ethan's gaze dropped to the table. I need to bring in the person who started this. Amelia's eyes narrowed. Who? Ethan's voice was firm. Nia Beaumont. Amelia hesitated. Is she a whistleblower? Ethan nodded. And she's the only one who seems to remember why we're supposed to exist. Ethan left the room and walked back through the gala. People tried to stop him. He didn't slow. He found Paige near the stage. Paige's eyes widened. Ethan, what is happening? Ethan's voice was low. I need the car, now. Paige grabbed his arm. If you leave, they'll talk. Ethan looked at her, expression unreadable. Let them. He walked out into the cold again. Nia was still in the back seat, staring out the window like she could see through time. When Ethan got in, she didn't speak. He didn't either, at first. The car pulled away. Ethan finally said, They're going to come for you. Nia's eyes stayed on the window. They already did. Ethan swallowed. I called an audit. Nia turned her head slightly. Good. Ethan's jaw flexed. Victor threatened me. Nia's lips pressed together. He's not used to consequences. Ethan stared at her. You planned this. Nia's gaze met his. I prepared. There's a difference. Ethan exhaled. Where's the proof? Nia reached into her hoodie pocket and placed the USB drive on the seat between them. Ethan stared at it like it was a live wire. Nia's voice was steady. It's encrypted. The password is not on a note. If something happens to me, it goes to a reporter and the state attorney. Ethan's eyes snapped up. You already involved a reporter? Nia's face stayed calm. I already learned not to trust powerful men to do the right thing without a reason. Ethan's chest tightened, stung by the truth of it. He nodded slowly. Fair. Nia leaned back. You want the password? Ethan hesitated, then said, Yes. Nia spoke the password, slow, clear, like she was reading out a verdict. Ethan repeated it under his breath. He looked down at the drive again. If what's on here is real, Naya finished quiet, then you're going to find out you've been funding harm with a smile. Ethan's throat tightened. Why do you still care? Naya's eyes didn't soften. Because the people inside those rooms don't get to stop caring. They don't get to opt out. The car rolled through the city, streetlights flicking across their faces like a heartbeat. Ethan stared ahead, then asked the question that had been waiting in him for years. Who benefits? Naya's voice was immediate. The vendors, the board, North Star, and the politicians who get to say the homeless problem is being handled while the money cycles back into campaigns. Ethan's jaw tightened. That's massive. Naya nodded. It's not just massive, it's designed. Ethan swallowed hard. So what now? Naya looked at him. Now you decide what kind of man you are when the cameras are off. He held her gaze, and for the first time, Ethan Carrington looked frightened, not of danger, of himself. Because if she was right, his entire identity was built on a lie he didn't write, but he benefited from anyway. They arrived at Bridgeway's headquarters, a clean building with glass walls and a lobby that smelled like money. Security at the desk looked up, startled. Mr. Carrington? Ethan's voice was firm. We're going upstairs. The guard hesitated, eyes flicking to Naya's hoodie, then to Ethan's coat. That flicker was small, but Naya noticed. She always noticed. Ethan noticed too, and his jaw tightened. Now, Ethan repeated. The guard nodded quickly and buzzed them through. They rode the lift in silence. On the top floor, the offices were dim. Night staff moved quietly. Ethan led Naya into a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, the kind of room where decisions got made far away from consequences. Ethan gestured to a chair. Sit. Naya sat, posture straight. Ethan plugged the USB into a laptop. Amelia and her team arrived minutes later, breathless, carrying files, already building a war room. Amelia looked at Naya. Ms. Beaumont. Naya nodded. Counsel. Amelia's eyes narrowed. You understand if this is false, there are risks. Naya's gaze was steady. If it's false, you'll find out quickly. If it's true, you'll spend years pretending you didn't know. Amelia held her gaze for a long beat, then nodded once. Fair. They opened files. Spreadsheets filled the screen. Numbers, contracts, vendor names repeating like a pattern. Payments routed through layers of LLCs. A consultancy fee here. A program evaluation there. A data services integration that looked harmless until you followed the money. Ethan sat very still. Every few minutes he would inhale sharply, like someone pulling air after being underwater too long. Amelia pointed to a line item. Halden Consulting, $200,000 quarterly. Ethan's voice was tight. For what? Naya answered. For existing. Amelia clicked into emails, one message then another. A thread with Victor, a thread with Meredith, a thread with a North Star executive named Calvin Rusk. Ethan's face tightened at the name. Calvin Rusk had shaken his hand on stage 3 months ago. He had called Ethan a man of principle, and the crowd had applauded. Naya watched Ethan's eyes move as the truth rewired itself inside him. Amelia's voice was controlled. This is enough to open an investigation. Ethan's hands curled into fists. Do it. Amelia hesitated. If we do, it becomes public. Ethan's voice was low. Good. Paige's earlier warning echoed in Ethan's head. You will embarrass everyone. Ethan looked at the city through the glass. Maybe embarrassment was a mercy compared to what the clients had been living. Naya spoke softly. They're going to try to flip this on you. Ethan looked at her. On me? Naya nodded. They'll say you knew. They'll say you authorized. They'll say you're doing damage control. They'll use you as the fall guy if it keeps the machine running. Ethan's jaw clenched. Let them try. Naya's eyes stayed on him. You sure? Ethan hesitated. That hesitation told Naya everything. He wasn't sure. Not yet. Because being righteous in private was easier than being accountable in public. Naya leaned forward slightly. I want you to understand something, Ethan. If you go halfway, people like Marisol pay the rest. Ethan's throat worked. What do you want from me? Nia's voice was calm, but it hit like a gavel. I want you to choose consequences over comfort. Silence. Amelia looked between them, then back at the screen. We need to secure internal records before anyone deletes anything. Ethan nodded. Lock it down, tonight. Amelia's team moved. Phones rang quietly. Passwords were changed. Access logs pulled. A digital perimeter built in real time. Ethan sat there, watching the structure he thought he controlled reveal itself as something else entirely. Nia sat opposite, still, steady. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and froze. Ethan noticed. What? Nia looked up. They're already moving. Ethan's stomach tightened. Who? Nia turned the phone screen towards him. A message from an unknown number. We see you. Then another. You think he'll save you? Then one more. Go home. Stay quiet, or you'll be sorry. Ethan's face hardened, anger flaring again. Amelia's eyes narrowed. We can trace that. Nia shook her head slightly. They'll use burners. It's not about being clever. It's about making sure I feel watched. Ethan's voice dropped. You're not leaving alone. Nia's gaze stayed steady. I wasn't planning to. Ethan stared at her. Why are you so calm? Nia's voice was quiet. Because fear is a tool they use, and I stopped lending them my body for it. Ethan swallowed, and for the first time, he felt small in front of her. Not because she was loud, because she was unbreakable in a world designed to break her. Hours passed. The night turned deeper. The building went quiet. At around 2 a.m, Amelia's team pulled a file that made everyone stop. A sealed HR report. It wasn't from Bridgeway, it was from North Star. Amelia frowned. How is this in our system? Nia's eyes tightened. It shouldn't be. Ethan leaned in. What is it? Amelia clicked. The report loaded, but sections were blocked, redacted, locked behind permissions. Only the cover page was visible. The title was clear enough. Internal Conduct Review. Subject: Calvin Rusk. Ethan's stomach dropped. Nia's voice was calm but edged. That's the biggest partner. Ethan's throat tightened. Why do we have this? Amelia's eyes were sharp. Because someone wanted leverage or because someone wanted to bury it. Ethan stared at the screen. The HR report was the Part 2 seed hanging in the room like a storm cloud. And even without reading it, Ethan understood what it meant. North Star wasn't just a sponsor. North Star was a gate. And behind that gate was something darker. Ethan's voice was low. Can you unlock it? Amelia shook her head slowly. Not without authorization, and whoever has it will know we tried. Nia leaned back. They already know we're coming. Ethan sat very still. Then he spoke, voice steady, deciding. Then we don't sneak, he said. We walk through the front. Nia watched him carefully. What does that mean? Ethan's eyes met hers. It means tomorrow I call an emergency board meeting, in daylight, in writing, recorded minutes, and I demand resignations. Amelia raised an eyebrow. That will explode. Ethan nodded. Good. Nia held his gaze. They'll call you a traitor to your own people. Ethan's mouth tightened. Let them. Nia waited, then asked the question that mattered. And what happens to the clients while you're fighting your board? Ethan swallowed. He looked at the screen, the contracts, the money. Then he looked at Nia. Tell me what you need, he said. Nia didn't smile. Immediate safety, safe placements that aren't motel traps, transportation stipends, no forced data releases, a real pathway out. Ethan nodded slowly. We can do that. Nia's eyes sharpened. Not can, will. Ethan's voice became firm. We will. Amelia nodded. We can implement emergency policy changes under executive authority. Ethan looked at her. Do it tonight. Amelia hesitated. Ethan's jaw flexed. Tonight, Amelia nodded. Understood. Nia watched the machine begin to turn in a different direction. It wasn't victory yet, but it was movement, and movement was what systems feared most when they relied on stillness. Morning came in gray light. Ethan went home for an hour shower and changed clothes, then returned to headquarters. Nia didn't sleep. She sat in the conference room, watching the city wake. At 9, the board arrived, furious, confused, already whispering. Paige tried to intercept Ethan, face tight. "You can't do this." Ethan didn't slow. "Watch me." The boardroom was bright, sun cutting through the glass. Victor Halden sat at the far end, calm, like he had rehearsed his outrage. Meredith sat beside him, lips pressed tight. Thomas sat with a folder, pretending to be offended. Other members were there too, the ones who liked to look surprised at harm they approved in private. Ethan took his seat at the head. Nia sat at the side, not at the table, because they would never allow her that dignity without a fight. But she was in the room, and that alone was a crack in their wall. Victor spoke first, voice smooth. "Ethan, we demand an explanation for last night's chaos." Ethan's voice was steady. "I demanded an audit because I found evidence of fraud," Meredith scoffed. "Evidence provided by who? A disgruntled ex-employee?" Nia didn't react. Ethan looked directly at Meredith. "You will not speak about her like that." Meredith's eyes flashed. "Ethan, you are being manipulated." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I have been manipulated for years, and it wasn't by her." Victor leaned back. "This is a dangerous accusation, Ethan. If you proceed, you expose the organization to reputational damage." Ethan nodded once. "The organization deserves reputational damage if it's harming people." Silence. Ethan continued, voice firm. "We have been paying vendors for services not rendered. We have been paying for motel rooms marked maintenance, that house equipment, not clients. We have allowed a partner to collect client data under coercive consent." Thomas's face reddened. "This is outrageous." Ethan looked at Amelia, who stood and placed documents on the table. Amelia spoke, crisp. "We have documentation, emails, payment trails, contract addendums." Victor's smile didn't move. "I want to see all of it." Amelia met his eyes. "You will, under investigation." Meredith snapped. "Investigation by who? You?" Amelia's voice stayed calm. "By independent forensic auditors, and by the appropriate authorities, if necessary." Victor's eyes narrowed. "Ethan, you're going to destroy everything we built." Ethan stared at him. "You built a pipeline, not a charity." Victor's face hardened. "Be careful." Ethan leaned forward slightly. "No, you be careful." Then Ethan did the thing nobody expected. He turned and addressed the room like a judge. "Effective immediately," he said. "Victor Halden is suspended from all duties pending investigation. Thomas Reeve is removed from finance oversight pending investigation. Meredith Klein is removed from program oversight pending investigation." Meredith shot to her feet. "You cannot do that." Ethan's voice didn't rise. "I just did." Victor's eyes went cold. "This is a coup." Ethan nodded once. "Call it whatever helps you sleep." Meredith's voice shook with rage. "You're making a spectacle." Ethan looked at her. "You made people's lives a spectacle. You just didn't film that part." Victor's jaw clenched. "And who will run operations? Who will run programs?" Ethan turned, and for the first time he pointed towards Nia. "She will," he said. The room froze. Meredith laughed sharp. "Absolutely not," Thomas spluttered. "This is insane." Victor's eyes narrowed. "You're installing your little volunteer as director?" Ethan's voice was firm. "Not because she's a volunteer, because she's competent, because she knows the work, because she tried to stop this years ago and you crushed her for it." Nia sat very still, face calm. But inside, something in her tightened. Not fear, something like grief. Because she knew what was coming next, the racism that always followed when a black woman stepped into power near money. Meredith's voice dripped. "Ethan, she will embarrass you." Ethan looked at Nia, then back at Meredith. "She's not here to protect my ego." Victor's smile returned, thin. "This will not stand." Ethan's eyes were steel. "It will. Or you will," Amelia spoke. "The bylaws allow interim appointment during investigation for operational continuity." Victor's eyes flashed. This is a violation of trust. Ethan nodded. That's the first true thing you've said all morning. Victor rose slowly, posture controlled. You're going to regret this. Ethan held his gaze. Maybe. Victor leaned closer, voice low, meant only for Ethan. You think you can cleanse this with drama. You don't even know where the bodies are buried. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Then start digging. Victor's face tightened, then he turned and walked out. Meredith followed, furious. Thomas left, shaking his head, already plotting. The door shut. The air in the boardroom felt different. Not safe, not yet, but different. Ethan exhaled slowly. Then he looked at Naya. She stood. Every eye in the room turned to her, some with hatred, some with curiosity, some with the slow panic of people who realized accountability had walked in wearing a hoodie. Nia's voice was calm, clear. Let's be honest, she said. You're not angry because Ethan wants an audit. You're angry because the people you profit from might finally be heard. She paused, letting it land. From today, she continued, we stop coercive data collection. We stop motel blocks that don't serve clients. We stop vendor contracts that can't be justified. We build a system that helps people exit, not circle. Silence. One board member, older, quiet, looked down at their hands like they couldn't bear to look at what they'd approved. Naya's voice stayed steady. This is going to be uncomfortable. If your priority is comfort, you're in the wrong organization. Ethan watched her, and in that moment, he understood the power shift wasn't about him saving anyone. It was about him finally getting out of the way. The following weeks were war. The press caught wind and circled like vultures. Headlines called Ethan reckless and hero in the same breath, depending on who owned the publication. Victor's allies leaked partial emails to frame Ethan as unstable. Meredith cried on a podcast about being betrayed by a man she supported. Thomas hired a lawyer and claimed harassment. North Star sent a polite letter demanding clarity on partnership terms. Polite threats are still threats. In the middle of it all, Naya worked. She visited sites. She built a clean placement list. She created a hotline staffed by people who had actually done the work, not people trained to sound kind while denying services. She met with clients without cameras. Marisol got a safe apartment voucher, fast-tracked with transportation support and childcare referrals that did not require her to sign her life away. Nia revised every consent form into plain language. She set up independent oversight panels, including former clients. She forced the organization to look at the outcomes it had been hiding. Ethan did what he was best at. He took the blows publicly. He let people hate him. He used his name as a battering ram against the board's old influence. And when donors threatened to withdraw, Ethan offered something they weren't used to hearing: the truth. If you leave because we stopped exploiting people, he told them, then your money was never help. It was a purchase. Some donors left, others stayed. A few, quietly ashamed, doubled their support. The audit findings landed like an earthquake. Vendor fraud, inflated contracts, data sharing beyond consent, kickbacks routed through consulting shells. The state attorney opened a formal investigation. Federal partners followed. Victor Halden was indicted. Thomas Reeve took a plea deal. Meredith Klein resigned publicly, then tried to flee quietly. North Star's Calvin Rusk disappeared from public events, then resigned for health reasons. But the sealed HR report remained sealed, a shadow in the file system, a warning that the biggest partner had deeper rot. One night, long after the headlines quieted, Ethan stood alone in the same glass conference room. The city lights below looked like stars. Naya entered holding a folder. Ethan looked up. How bad is it? Naya sat across from him, calm. Bad, but survivable. Ethan nodded slowly. And the clients? Nia's eyes softened slightly. They're starting to trust again. Not because we talk about trust, because we keep our word. Ethan exhaled. I owe you. Nia's gaze was steady. You owe them. Ethan nodded. You're right. A silence settled, not awkward but heavy with what they had both learned. Ethan looked at her. Do you want the director role permanently? Nia didn't answer immediately. She thought about the years she'd been pushed out, the nights she'd spent watching systems chew people up, the threats, the exhaustion. Then she thought about Marisol's toddler's face tucked into her mother's shoulder, safe for once. Nia nodded once. Yes. Ethan's eyes held hers. Then it's yours. Nia's voice was quiet. I'll rebuild it, but not alone. No saviors, no vanity. Ethan nodded. Agreed. Nia slid the folder across the table. Ethan frowned. What's that? Nia's eyes sharpened. A request. Ethan opened it. Inside was a formal letter addressed to North Star's board. Subject: demand for disclosure of internal HR investigation relating to Calvin Rusk, pursuant to partnership ethics and compliance clauses. Ethan's throat tightened. You want the sealed report? Nia nodded. Because if we stop at Bridgeway, we've only cleaned the visible mess. The pipeline started somewhere else. Ethan stared at the letter, then looked up. They won't hand it over. Nia's voice was steady. Then we make them. Ethan swallowed. How? Nia leaned back, calm, certain. The same way they built their power, documentation, pressure, and consequences. Ethan stared at the city again. Then he nodded once. Send it, he said. Nia stood. Good. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. Without looking back, she said, one more thing. Ethan looked up. Nia's voice was quiet, but final. No cameras. Ethan nodded. No cameras. Nia left the room. Ethan sat alone for a moment, feeling the strange absence of applause, the strange weight of doing something real. He looked down at the letter again, and he realized the truth. Part 1 had never been about a woman refusing money. It had been about refusing to be bought. And once a system meets someone it can't purchase, it has only two choices: change or expose itself trying. If you want a Part 2, comment HR report and tell me what you think is inside it. And if you've ever seen a system pretend to help while quietly profiting, drop your story in the comments. Someone else might need to hear they're not crazy.